6 o'clock, are you ready?
Whenever you are.
All right. Well, it is 6 p.m. We're going to call this meeting to order, and thank you, gentlemen, for being here, and thank everybody for being here. And if you would please stand and remain standing, we're going to start the evening off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Caldwell, would you mind pressing us?
Dear most gracious Heavenly Father God, as always, we thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. Thank you for safe passage to be here. We pray, Father, that everything done here will be done in your will and will be done in ways that are pleasing to you. We just thank you for all the opportunities you will lay before everyone here tonight. We pray, Father, please, you will bless this meeting and bless all who attend. In Jesus' holy and precious name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. And if we would have a little moment of silence for Judy Armento, who passed away, one of our neighbors, and any others. Thank you. Please be seated. This time I'll ask any gentleman of the board if there's anybody that has a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda, please let us know now. And I'm going to do just like I should have done earlier, and I recommend everybody else does. Please cut your phones off or cut your sound down. I know you've all got some awesome sounds, ringtones, but let's share them later. There we go. And just for the record, we have 2 commissioners out this evening. We have Commissioner Charlie Morgan and Don Miller are not present tonight. We had checked to see, I know y'all remember during COVID, we were doing meetings online, so we checked to see if that was possible. But once the state of emergency was relaxed, those rules went away. I think there's an effort now to try to amend that with today's technology to allow that to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. With that, we're moving on. We have public comment. We had 2 people sign up, and we'll start with Don Fisher. Go ahead, go to the podium, please.
Excuse me, Mayor, you want to adopt the agenda first?
I'm sorry. I skipped right past it. Thank you. First, let me make a motion. Hold your statement right there. Motion to adopt the agenda as it is.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Forgive me. I do that sometimes. Now, Donna.
Hi, good evening to all. My name is Donna Fisher, and I live at 301 Soundview down here at the end of Dolphin Street. I'm here this evening to wage my complaint about the boat ramp pass decision that was made back in May. I felt that it gave the taxpayers of Cape Carteret a huge disadvantage. It was kind of like you changed the rules in the middle of the game. You made that decision in May. Those boat ramp passes went from July 1st to the end of June, not giving anybody an opportunity to renew their boat ramp pass. Okay, you've extended it through December, and by doing that, again, you've capped it at 300, which gives somebody like myself who wants to put her jet ski in the water this summer a complete disadvantage. The other thing I read recently was this evening that you were going to reconsider maybe providing additional boat ramp passes to certain people under certain circumstances, and that the fee for an annual boat ramp pass was $225. And for a 6-month pass, it's still going to be $225. So last July 1st, the first 300 boat ramp passes cost $225 for the town residents. Then you extended it for 18 months. So they pay $225 for 18 months. And yet the new people coming in who want a boat ramp pass only till December don't even get that prorated. And that just doesn't even make sense to me. And I don't understand how anybody could think that that would be fair and just on any level. The other thing I want to take into consideration is the streets. Twice this year, I've blown flats just crossing Highway 24. Once was a nail clipper. The top part of the clipper went right through a heavy-duty Michelin new tire and blew it out. Last week, I went across just to get my nails done in Lowe's shopping center, and the nail went right through my tire. By the time I came out, my tire was flat. So I don't know who's in charge of street cleaning, or if that's something that we can add to the agenda of getting some street cleaners out there and get the roads cleaned up so that we stop blowing tires on crossing over the road. And both happened here in Cape Carteret. One happened out at the light at Lowe's, and the other one happened crossing right across the street here. So those were my two things, the boat ramp passes and maybe getting the streets cleaned up a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Ernie Moore.
This won't take long. My name is Ernie Moore. I live at 200 Bayshore Drive. Want to personally thank the Public Works for what they do in our neighborhood, and for the town of Cape Carteret. They do a lot of work. There's only three guys that does all the trimming, the cutting, the ditch digging, everything you can think of. And I just want to personally thank Ryan, Todd, and Adam for the work that they do, and I do appreciate it. But I just want everybody to know how I feel and our neighborhood feels toward them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else sign up? Okay. Next up, we have a certificate of appreciation for Sarah Wax, our planning board member. Sarah, would you walk up to the front? I'd love to hand this to you. Sarah served on our planning board, and I always say this, and it still rings true. She gave the town the most valuable asset she has, her time. And I can't thank you enough on behalf of the town. Thank you for your service to our town. And thank you, sir, for letting me go. Next up is the consent agenda. We have a motion to approve it.
I'll make that motion.
All right.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. Next up, item 10, lease extension for 204 W.B. McLean Drive, Unit C.
Mayor Baker, members of the Board of Commissioners, the board is asked to consider a 27-month lease extension for Cult Life golf carts here at the meeting tonight. They have leased approximately 1,000 square feet in the building directly in front of us at 204 W.B. McLean Drive since 2018. They pay $1,000 per month for rent. The town does cover some of the utilities for that facility. The item for consideration for the board tonight is to extend that lease for an additional 27 months. You may ask why 27 months? That's a rather odd term. The reason for that is that the lease for the Girl Scouts in the same building expires on September 30th of 2025. And at this point, I'm just trying to get both leases on the same timetable so that the town will have some flexibility if there are other options we want to consider at that time in 2025. As you know, we've had some conversations, very high-level conversations about perhaps trying to identify a new town hall and police station location. And this action tonight is one step that will just put us in a better position to make a change at that time if we would like. It may be that we don't or don't want to, in which case the board may decide to extend both leases for some additional time at that time, but really just trying to give us the maximum flexibility going forward. So the item is a 27-month lease extension, all of the exact same terms and conditions that are included in the current lease that's been in effect since 2018. Those terms and conditions are pretty consistent with the lease that you all approved for the Girl Scouts last September. So A public hearing is required before board consideration of this item. We have advertised and scheduled that public hearing for tonight. So, Mr. Mayor, I'd ask
All
you to
right.
open the public
So
hearing.
I'll entertain a motion to go out of regular meeting into the public meeting, public hearing. I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion to open the public
Okay.
hearing.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? All right, we're now into the public hearing regarding the lease extension for 204 WB McLean Drive, Unit C. Did anyone sign up to speak? Say it publicly. Anybody here would like to say it? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to go out of the public hearing and back into the regular meeting.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, thank you. We're now back in regular session. And with no public comment, I guess we'll entertain a motion for the lease extension.
I'll make that motion to extend the lease for a period of 27 months for Cult Life custom cards.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. I think they've been a great tenant, a great business for our town. Number 11, the resolution authorizing the construction contract for Sutton Drive / Star Hill Golf Course drainage improvements.
Yes, Mayor Baker. Commissioners, I'm very pleased to be here tonight to seek the board's approval of the resolution authorizing a construction contract for drainage improvements in the Sutton Drive area and Star Hill Golf Course. I've got a schematic on the screen that's also included in the board's packets and maybe in some of the hard copies and on the website as well. I apologize, it's a little bit difficult to read from that distance. But essentially, the board is being asked to approve a contract in the amount of $38,060 with Sunland Builders right here in Newport, right down the road on Highway 24. Essentially, we believe that this will resolve the flooding concerns that you all have experienced a few times in the past 5 or 6 years by essentially removing an impediment in the fairway at Star Hill Golf Course. So if you see where the cursor is here, this section right through here, this is the golf course fairway. This is the north up here. Pettiford Creek is ultimately out here. Sutton Drive is down in this area. Some pretty significant flooding in the Sutton Drive area, also over in Sutton Place. There is an existing 15-inch pipe that goes underneath of the fairway in this area that just proved to be undersized for the rainfall, the most significant rainfall events that were experienced in the past. And then once that pipe backs up, because of the topography of the fairway, there's just nowhere for the water to go. It backed up into this neighborhood over Sutton Place, Sutton Drive. So the proposal tonight for the contract for your consideration is essentially to create a vegetated swale approximately 10 foot wide at the bottom at an elevation of about 17.3 feet. And it would go across the entire length of the fairway, essentially in the same location as the existing pipe. That existing pipe is at an elevation of about 14.3, if I'm not mistaken. And essentially the theory is that when the water piles up and it just can't get through the pipe, it would rise up above the pipe and it would flow unimpeded across the fairway at that 17.3 elevation. And would essentially work its way into catch basins on the north side of the fairway, into a pipe, and out into Pettiford Creek. And for those of you who may be familiar with that area, that 17.3 elevation is essentially the same elevation as the existing golf cart path that's located in that area on the north side of the fairway right here. So that's the biggest improvement that's proposed that we think will resolve the flooding concerns during the significant events. The homes that are down here in this area south of the fairway, they're generally sitting anywhere at 18, 19, 20 feet. So it should be theoretically the right elevation to get the water out of there. As part of this project, there's also construction of a new ditch essentially along the southern edge of the fairway, feeding into an existing ditch and the existing pipe and this overflow swale that we would construct as part of this project. We are not making any changes to the existing pipe that runs from Sutton Drive between these homes on Sutton out to the fairway. Engineer believes that that is sufficient to convey the volumes. We are, however, replacing an existing pipe underneath of Sutton Drive. It's an 8-inch pipe right now. would be replaced with a 15-inch pipe. It would also correct some of the disjointed nature of the pipes in that area out on Sutton Drive. So that's included in the scope of work. And again, the total amount is $38,060. You have ample funds available in the capital project ordinance established for stormwater improvements. One thing I want to point out is that another key part of this project that's not a part of this contract is the construction of a new ditch from Sutton Place out to the northeast to the ditch that I just referenced on the southern end of the fairway. The town has an existing easement at that location. The gentleman who just purchased the vacant lot on Sutton Place is making plans to build his house for his family there in the coming weeks. And so we'll be working with his grading contractor when he does his lot clearing and landscaping, just to create the ditch there to hopefully give it an unobstructed, unimpeded pathway from Sutton Place down into this system. And again, hopefully never have the problems that folks experienced in that area again. We use the informal bid process for this project because it is a relatively small dollar amount. We provided bid packages to 6 reputable local contractors in our area directly. We also advertised on the town's website. We got 2 bids back. Sunland is the low bidder, $38,060. The town has had experience with them in the past. I've had experience in my career with them. I find them to be a quality, reputable contractor and have no reservations about using them for this work for the town. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And if the board is so inclined, a resolution to authorize the construction contract.
Frank, I have a question. During the process of the work during the contract, who's the responsible party that's going to be overseeing that the work is done accordingly to specs?
So it'll be a combination of myself, Ryan Hutchinson, and our engineer, Jonathan McDaniel from Tidewater and Associates. So all 3 of us will be involved in overseeing it. I'll let you all entertain a comment or question from Ms. Holtz at your discretion. One thing I did want to mention to you is that we've worked very cooperatively with the golf course on this project over the last probably 6 or 7 months. I want to personally thank Ms. Holtz and also the golf course personnel for being good partners with us on this project. We have the board approved an easement across the golf course back in September. The easement that's necessary for this project is consistent with the terms that we discussed back in September. We've had, I think, 3 different meetings with Ms. Holtz and the golf course, and we do not have the easement executed yet. I expect that that will occur sometime in the next couple of weeks or so. Certainly no funds would be expended, no notice to proceed would be issued until that easement's in hand. I don't anticipate any challenges with that. However, I just want to make you aware of that. And it's up to you, Mr. Mayor, if you want to. But I really do want to thank Ms. Holtz and the golf course. Really been good partners with us.
So, did you have something you want to say?
Yes, sir. Thank you for entertaining the question. Star Hill wants to know where the access to this easement is going to be located. I asked the engineer, he couldn't answer Star Hill.
Yeah, so
Access to this easement.
do you mean during construction or permanently? Okay. So, yeah.
Bulldozers and trucks running up down the golf course.
Sure. So during construction, we had conversations with golf course personnel about accessing it from, I believe it's Clubhouse Drive, the side road off this end of the fairway. We will also likely access it through the town's easement that we have at the end of Sutton Place, and certainly work cooperatively. The concept that we discussed was essentially keeping it to the far southern end of the fairway, coming from the clubhouse area, and not damaging any of the fairway areas or anything like that.
There is a subdivided lot on that tee that you may or not may be aware of. You know, we can't give you permission to cross through that, but we just don't want a lot of continued access to this easement through the golf course. And you might try from Star Hill Drive through those people's, through that access or from Sutton Court, and we'll always cooperate with the town in any possible way we can.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in terms of any routine maintenance that may be required in the future, first of all, I expect that it would be relatively minimal. But we would try to access it through our existing easement at the end of Sutton Place, and then also from Star Hill Drive to the north area here. And certainly if the town damages anything that's not the town's property, we'll absolutely make it right for the golf course or any private property owners that are affected in that area.
Any more questions, comments, Frank?
Um, Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm getting the feeling here that this is not quite a done deal on both sides of both parties here between the town and Star Hill. We haven't obtained a recorded easement. I'm a little uncomfortable appropriating funds until everything's in order here. What do you think, Brett?
Well, I think Frank and I actually talked about that this afternoon. So we recently got the map from the surveyor, which is necessary to reference it within the easement. It's my understanding that all the parties have seen that and it's consistent with their discussions up to that date. But Frank and I feel comfortable with it, with the understanding that we're not going to actually ask the contractor to begin work until such time as we have the recorded easement.
Okay, well, I just witnessed a conversation between Paxton representing the golf course and the town manager here. I want to make sure both sides are comfortable if that any of that needs to be put in writing or anything, her concerns or.
It's in process.
Okay.
Yeah, I think certainly an understandable concern. I mean, to a certain extent, there's a bit of a chicken and egg issue with really many different aspects of the project. And so the actual work will not be constructed until probably late July, August. That was the request of the golf course to minimize the impacts on the golf course. So I have full confidence we'll finalize the easement probably by the end of June, if not sooner. Certainly will not issue a notice to proceed or spend any town funds. If something horrible happens, obviously we'll adjust, but I don't foresee that right now.
I think if there's a motion to be made by the board that needs to include that verbiage, no funds released until the easement's recorded.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is,
That's right.
Yeah, and for that matter, we don't have the right to access their property anyway.
Okay.
So absolutely.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions? All right, we'll entertain a motion then.
We're gonna make the motion to authorize a construction contract for Sutton Drive Star Hill Golf Course only after the easement, only the work to begin after the easement is recorded.
Absolutely. Sure.
All right, have a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay, thank you, Jim. Next up is resolution authorizing construction contract for Arden Oaks drainage improvements.
Pull up the graphic. So equally pleased to be at this point for the Arden Oaks project as well. What you have before you tonight is a contract with M&W Land Improvement. They are a company based in Jacksonville. Total amount of the contract is $52,680. And they would construct a series of improvements in the Arden Oaks neighborhood. As some of you may recall, pretty significant flooding in this area right here at the entrance to the subdivision. The low spot when you go into Arden Oaks, it's at about elevation 22, 23-ish in that area. Couple of pretty significant flooding events. The town was forced to bring in portable pumps and hose and so forth, and the road was closed for several days and a lot of inconvenience for folks in that neighborhood. This project, we believe, will prevent that from ever happening again. Essentially, the situation in this general area of Arden Oaks, it's just a natural bowl. Once the water is of such a volume, there's just nowhere for the water to go. It's basically like a bowl without a drain. So the project that we are recommending is essentially creating a drain plug, for lack of a better term, for this area. So this is the existing stormwater area in Arden Oaks. We would be tidying that up as part of this project just to make sure everything is functioning properly in that area. The town recently closed on the purchase of Lot 3 in this area here. We will be constructing new infiltration basins on that vacant lot. And then at the rear of the lot, and then flowing to the southwest in this direction here, basically creating a new conveyance for stormwater to flow by gravity from the problem area down to Rocky Run Creek, which is down here in this area here. So the elevation of Rocky Run Creek is around elevation 15, 16 by the time you get to the creek. The elevation of the road up here is 23, 22, 23. We've essentially created a conveyance system here that will allow it to flow by gravity. The contract with M&W Land Improvement 52680, that includes the installation of about 220 linear feet of pipe in this segment right here behind the 3 existing homes in Arden Oaks. That is still an open question with the permit agencies. The contract price includes the piping. We are negotiating with the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality right now on exactly what form that's going to take. There's a chance that it will become a vegetated swale. There's a chance that it will be part vegetated swale, part piping, and we're working through those issues right now. I think we'll ultimately resolve those issues in a satisfactory way. That change from a pipe to a vegetated swale is only going to decrease the amount of this contract. So this is kind of the worst case scenario, the 52,680. So we're working through that. Similar to the Sutton Drive Star Hill Golf Course project, we sent the bid package directly to 6 local contractors that are qualified. We got back 2 bids for that project. M&W was a low bid at 52,680. Sunland was the other bidder for that project at $109,900, considerably higher. Jonathan McDaniel, the engineer for the town on this project, has had considerable experience with M&W Land Improvement. We feel comfortable that they can complete the work in a quality manner and in a timely fashion. This project also, if the board approves it, is likely to be constructed sometime in July and August timeframe. That really the biggest outstanding question right now is the permit issue that we're working through, and I think we'll resolve that eventually. My goal for both of these is to have them functional before the peak of the hurricane season, which, as you all know, generally runs from about mid-late August to mid-late September. So that's what we're shooting for. Both projects are pretty simple, shouldn't take more than a few weeks at the most to construct. And I do want to also thank the property owners in Arden Oaks, their homeowners association, for their cooperation in this project. A lot of conversations with those folks. And also want to thank Mrs. Holtz for her cooperation. She's the owner of the parcel directly to the south of the easement area. So she has provided a 10-foot permanent easement to enable this project to happen. Without that easement, this project could not happen. And so I'm thankful for her cooperation. And again, I believe it will solve the problems in this area. So appreciate everyone's cooperation on it. Think it's a good solution. Quite frankly, I think it's probably the only solution other than living with the accumulated water that the community had to deal with in the past. I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have about this and ask for your consideration.
Are there any questions for Fran? Comments? Do we have a motion then?
I'll make the motion to approve the resolution authorizing construction contract for Arden Oaks drainage improvements.
All right, second.
Second.
Favor? Thank you, John. 13 is the resolution authorizing construction contract for town hall modifications.
So the item before you for consideration tonight is a contract with Edwin M. Holt, General Contractor Incorporated. He is based here in Cape Carteret. The amount of the contract is $29,656. And that contract, if awarded, would fund various improvements in this building. essentially adding additional walls. Those new walls are indicated in red on the diagram before you. There's also a series of new doors as part of the project. There's a new window added to the structure, literally right outside the door, the storage room here. Basically so that we can create additional office space and accommodate the police department here in the town hall building. We currently have 4 town employees who work out of the town hall building. We will soon have a 5th here in July. Typically, the police department may have 2 or 3 people at any one time in the police station, and hopefully most of the time they're out on the streets and patrolling the neighborhoods and dealing with issues. So this project would enable us to move the police department into this building. I think that the move of the police department into this building has several advantages for the town. Number one, it sets us up and provides flexibility for whatever future plans we may make regarding a town hall or a police station. It essentially puts everybody under the same roof so that if we decide to pursue some other solution, whether that's purchasing another building, whether that's building a new building, whether that's purchasing another piece of property and building a new building, really just trying to get us in a position so that the board will have as much flexibility as possible going forward. So that's kind of the main goal of this. And as we've talked about in some of our previous meetings, actively exploring different scenarios, and certainly we'll come back to the board with those as they develop over time. Beyond that, I think in the short term, it provides some other operational efficiencies for us. I think it will be helpful to have the entire staff in police and town hall under one roof, just promote better relationships, better understanding, better knowledge of what's going on. It also helps us with our telephone system, helps us with our IT system. There's some operational efficiencies there, some minor savings that will be helpful as well. And so I'm looking forward to that part of it. And then it also gives the town the flexibility in the short term to possibly lease the existing police station building. We talked a little bit about that during your budget discussions a few weeks ago. I believe we probably could lease that existing space for somewhere in the $2,000 a month range, comparable to what the Girl Scouts are currently paying the town. And that's something once, if the board approves the contract, once we get everything completed, get the police department moved in, we'll explore that possibility going forward as well. Ultimately, in the long term for the town, my hope is that 204 WB McLean Drive might be demolished at some point in the future and replaced with a nicer, newer structure, either for use by the town in the long term, or perhaps even by a private entity that might acquire it from the town. And so those are the kinds of things that we've been just kicking the tires on and talking about, and certainly going to take several months and years to materialize. So really, this is a step that kind of puts us in a position to pursue those things going forward. We've created offices for the police chief, the police lieutenant, the police detective. We've got a police day room. We've also got a new office for the town manager, moving around some walls and some storage areas, and essentially putting the town hall staff on that side, the northern side of the building, the police department more on the southern side of the building. Police will use the 2 exterior doors that are on the south side of the building, generally speaking, to access the building. I solicited proposals from multiple local contractors, provided a copy of this diagram, actually walked through, in some cases more than one time, with the contractors to explain the scope of work with them. We received proposals from 3 different contractors. The proposal from Edwin M. Holt was the lowest, $29,656. There are sufficient funds in the public buildings budget established for fiscal 22-23. If the board awards this contract, I would expect that the work probably will not begin until late June, maybe even into July. It's probably a couple week, maybe 3-week project. There'll be some temporary inconvenience for our staff, and we'll just work through that and do the best we can to minimize the disruption going forward. The one thing I wanted to point out is that in my mind, I view this as a phase 1 of maybe a 1-phase project, or Depending on how things go, it might be phase one of a two-phase project. So the improvements that are outlined on the graphic on the screen, they're really intended to be functional. It's adding walls, adding doors, making sure the ceiling tiles fit nice and neat. And it's all functional improvements. It's not cosmetic. It's not new flooring. It's not painting. It's not other things that would modernize the building. And that's intentional because I hope that over the next couple years, we'll figure out the long-term strategy. And I wouldn't want to invest the town's funds in those kinds of things if I do come up with a better strategy. And we would just basically make do with this for whatever interim period. If we get a couple years down the road and we just haven't been able to identify a better strategy, there's no good solution, and the town revisits this issue and makes a decision that this is more of a long-term solution, at that point in time, I would ask the board to consider some of the cosmetic improvements, perhaps even an expansion on this building at that time. And that may be something we talk about some more going forward as well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And pleased to be presenting this to you tonight.
Any questions, comments for Frank?
Frank, the funds are coming from the current budget, correct? And if the work is not completed until the next budget, are you able to roll that money over?
Yeah, more than likely it will not be completed by June 30th. I'm almost positive of that. So we would simply come back to the board in July or August with a rollover budget amendment for anything that was in progress at June 30th and roll it forward. So it's the same money though.
And so these funds were initially appropriated by this board for roof replacement over here on the other building over here.
That's my understanding. I haven't gotten to the bottom line on that. Perhaps you all know better than I do.
It was.
So,
I just want it as a matter of being public.
There is a total of $60,000 in that line item. I don't know if it was all intended for roof type stuff, but that's the money that would be used for these improvements.
I see where you're going with this, but there's a lot of ifs here for me. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where I stand on this. I'm kind of hesitant to vote in favor of it, but in no way, shape, or form, if I do vote no here in a second or two, it's no reflection on the contractor. I want that to make perfectly clear. But I think you're cramming a lot in this small building. There's no mayor's office, which I know Mayor Baker never wanted an office to start with, but I've always thought that the mayor should have an office to meet with people, but I don't see one included in the project here. That's all I got to say about it. I'm not. It's just too many ifs. If a year from now, if 2 years from now, I mean, we need to have a game plan, if you will. But I see where your thought process is, but that's a lot of money to put out just on. If we stay here a year, we're going to tear the building down across there. I mean, it's uncertainty, I guess is a better word.
Yeah, certainly understandable concerns, and ultimately it's this board's judgment to make on whether it's a wise use of funds. I'm trying to position us for something better for the community in the future, and so that's the main motivation behind it. You are correct, there's no mayor's office included in the diagram on the screen. I would submit to you that if and when the town either builds or secures another building for a town hall, I would definitely want it to include an office for the elected officials to use, whether it's the mayor or whether the mayor shares it with the commissioners. I think that would be reasonable, but it's not included in this, quite frankly, because there's not enough room for that in this current configuration.
Well, if you have a potential business that wants to come to town and they want to meet with the mayor, I mean, the mayor comes in, Frank, can we use your office? I mean, it just doesn't look good, in my opinion. So,
I think in a way though, when you look at this floor plan, it does sort of create a little bit more efficient use of the space. So as we call it in the federal government, tightening up a little bit isn't always a bad thing. I mean, I think, putting the wall between the general storage area there, I mean, that makes sense because it's just such a wide open space. So I think, I mean, I do understand what Commissioner Martin is saying, but sometimes these just go that you don't have that master plan and you sort of have to go with a 80% solution. I don't think it's a complete waste. I do think it's a good use of funds to make more efficient use out of this building. So I think if this is something that you want to do and feel confident about, and I do agree with your reasons for doing it, I think this is a good idea. So I support this.
Yeah, I think this is just a stepping stone to something better and on the horizon. It's not a perfect plan, but I think it's a great plan. And also opened up another avenue for a business to come over next door to where the town can achieve more monies per year. So I think this is a good stepping stone for the town moving forward to what's going to be better for us down the road.
I got one final comment. I just have to say this, Frank. You know how I feel about the last budget. I think it was not the greatest budget, but here we are talking about potential revenue for this PD office over here, and it was not included in the budget 2 weeks ago that we adopted. I just want to throw that out.
Yeah, and so if the board approves this tonight, and at such time that the work is complete and we identify a tenant for that, I certainly would come back to the board with a budget amendment, and you could allocate those funds for whatever priorities you may have at that time. At the time the budget was put together, quite frankly, I wasn't sure if the board would support this or not support it. So, but absolutely, if we do lease the property to someone over there, the board will be able to decide how to use those funds.
Well, I'm saying if it would have been included in the budget, even a 6-month projection of renting that property, we could have used that money for to enhance our paving or something like that. That's what I'm saying.
I think anytime this board needs to talk about potential revenue streams, they should do it. I mean, these taxpayers out here, I mean, if it's something we can save them and get a revenue stream, I think any time of year that you want to bring a revenue stream to this board, I think we should be able to talk about it. So I think it's fine that it's not in the budget. We're talking about it now. And if a few months from now, there's a potential, or we need to add it to the schedule to talk about something we could lease out, I think that's certainly fine.
I would like to go on record. I think our budget process was very well put together, very well done. And in our budget workshops, we had plenty of ample opportunities to discuss these upcoming things if that was a need. We knew this was in the pipeline. I believe moving forward for the town is very positive. And I like what's going on with the town, what we're moving toward. We're saving money and making changes for the betterment of our community, and I like it.
I think it's just a typical government project that's got too many gray areas for me to be comfortable with, so I'm going to vote no for it.
Well, before we vote, we need to have somebody to make a motion.
I think I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution authorizing construction contract for town hall modifications.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any more comments or discussion? All right, all in favor? All opposed? Next up is discussion and potential allocation of additional boat ramp passes for the remainder of 2023. And gentlemen, just want to make sure that y'all read the email we got from the citizen.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I also had a statement from Commissioner Morgan. If you wanted to have read, I'll read that on his behalf. It says, unfortunately, will not be able to attend. I'll appreciate if you read the following when the boat ramp discussion begins. I do not support raising the boat ramp past cap. Put the cap in place in order to address overuse and lack of parking. The amount of space the boat ramp has not changed. And raising the cap not only puts us back where we were, but also breaks faith with pass holders that agreed to pay more for a better experience. Thanks, Charlie. I did not hear anything from Commissioner Miller. So with that, Frank,
So, Mayor Baker, Commissioners, this item was requested by Commissioner Watts, and I'll just kind of briefly explain the decision for the board here tonight. As you know, the board established a cap of 285 passes for the boat ramp back in June of 2022. During the course of last fiscal year, the board authorized the manager to increase that number to 300 passes. So we issued 300 passes for the fiscal year 22-23. It covered July 1st to June 30th, July 1st, 2022 to June 30th of 2023. So in a normal year, those would have expired in a few weeks from tonight. As you know, back in April, we talked about changing the period that the passes are valid to a calendar year period. And so the board approved that in April, and we will move to a system where passes will be valid January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2024, here in about six and a half months or so. What the board approved and what we've implemented is that the passes, the 300 passes that were issued for the current fiscal year that would have expired on June 30th, they will remain valid through December 31st. We've advised people that if you already have a pass, you don't need to do anything. You can continue to use that pass through December 31st. It will remain valid. We've also advised other people who've made inquiries to the town that we are not intending to issue any additional passes for the period from now till December 31st. That we have a cap of 300 and we are at that 300 level, and that no other passes will be issued. The passes to Cape Carteret residents for 2024, calendar year 2024, are scheduled to go on sale on November the 1st of 2023. Passes for residents of other communities in our area would go on sale December the 1st of 2023. The concern that has been expressed is that with the change to the calendar year system that's planned, anybody that may have intended to purchase a pass this June for the period of July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2024, doesn't have an opportunity to purchase a pass at this time because we're at the cap. We're not issuing any more. In response to that concern, Commissioner Watts asked me to consider different options that the board could discuss and potentially implement. I've outlined 4 options in your packet for you. One would be just a simple increase in the cap from 300 to 325 passes. Based on the inquiries that we've received over the last few weeks or so, I think that would probably be sufficient to meet the additional demand. Those passes would be offered on a first come, first served basis, just like we issue other passes, and the number would go up to 325. We've kept track of about 15 people who have inquired in the last month or so seeking passes. These are people who didn't already have a current pass. So I think 25 might be a reasonable number for the board to consider. The second option is to just authorize the town manager to issue additional passes for the rest of 2023. If the person is somebody who bought their home after July 1st of 2022 or bought their lot after that time, or perhaps they purchased a new vessel after that time, to provide those folks an opportunity. Based on the inquiries that we've received over the last few weeks to a month, I would guess that there might be 10 people, give or take, who might qualify for that. And these are just educated guesses based on the inquiries that we've received. Another option the board may wish to consider for this year and also maybe in the future, I would submit to you the first two options probably should only be considered for just the current year, just this odd situation that we're in with the shift to the calendar year basis. The third option is something you may want to consider this year, you may want to consider in the future also, and it's basically to issue additional passes after September 15th. When the crowds have died down and there's more availability at the boat ramp there, it may be a way to accommodate additional residents and property owners without placing a burden on the neighbors in that area. And then finally, you may want to keep the current cap of 300 in effect and not make any changes tonight. So I think those are probably four viable options for the board to consider. Happy to consider other options if the board would like to. A comment was made about keeping the fee at $225 for the remainder of the year. And I think that's a valid concern for someone to express. I will tell you that the rationale behind that suggestion was trying to discourage people from getting additional passes if they don't truly have a bona fide need. Now, you may say that's a good thought or that's a bad thought, and that's perfectly fine, but that was the thought process behind it, because I'm aware of the concerns that people have about overcrowding at the ramp. I didn't want people to just go get one for the sake of getting one. But that number, if you choose to go that route, you can establish that fee at whatever number you'd like. If it's 225, great. If it's 125, great. If it's 50, it really depends on what you all think is the right number. So there's no magic to that number if you decide to go that route. I think that's all the key points that I wanted to mention to the board. Happy to answer any questions you may have about the write-up or any other aspect of this.
So since I brought the issue, I think I'll just go ahead and start. I agree with everything Frank says here, but for a couple of things. And so I think the background is important. I think this board might have gotten it a little bit wrong when we voted for the cap and then we voted to extend, because if you bought a pass in June of last year, you wouldn't have known that you were going to not be able to buy a pass June of this year. And so I do sort of think that we created a sticky situation. So I do like the extenuating circumstances, which is the number 2 option here. And I also think that it fixes a lot of that problem. But I also think that we should make a few changes to that. I think that as a boat ramp user myself, I think it would be good to know what utilization is like. I think it'd be good to capture some of that information. And I also think it would be good to ensure that we are enforcing that. So I think some type of, data checks would be good. I think reducing the fees just for this time, for this 5 or 6 month period, makes sense. I think Ms. Donna Fisher, you bring up a good point. I actually do agree with you there. And I think when you look at the overall group that this is going to impact, I think it's going to be very low. And so I think you had proposed 325 in option 2, which would be the new cap. I think it'd be something a little bit less. I'm thinking something a little bit less than that. So for this board, that's kind of where I am right now in the discussion phase of this.
The town attorney just pointed out to me, and I hope I was clear about this in the written materials and in my comments, but just to be certain, any additional passes under the options that I mentioned in the written materials would be for Cape Carteret residents and property owners only. So just for this particular instance.
That was my assumption as well.
I believe, moving forward, I mean, we had also received a letter from a new resident from Bayshore Park, 2 or 3 months ago pertaining to, they had just bought property here, just moved here with the assumption they had the access to a boat ramp. And, when the guy here found out they could not purchase a permit because they were already capped out. I think a cap is fine at 300, but however, with the exception when we do have somebody new moving in or in exceptional circumstances, I believe that the town manager should have the authority and discretion to look at that as well moving forward. Whatever that need may be, or whatever the circumstance may be. And if we decide to go that direction, maybe we could look at not a 25 or whatever, but maybe a 5 or a 10, no more than 5, 10 between now and the end of the year as a temporary basis until we come back to this board with everybody here and make something more definite. But I do believe we need to do something, at least starting now until the end of the year, because I know we have some full-time residents that can get to boat ramp, and they've just been here recently. That's not, I don't think that's actually a fair way to look at our taxpayers are living here in this town and they can have access to a boat ramp. They have just moved here recently. They weren't part of the permit process prior to them getting here. And that's just my thoughts with that.
Here we go again. Just like Groundhog Day, the movie. I mean, how many times have we got to come discuss the boat ramp issue? It just comes back every month. We put a cap of 300 and told those 300 pass owners, we're going to raise your rates 2.5 times what you're paying, but we're going to keep that capacity to prevent overcrowding. There's no way I'm going to vote to increase the capacity and be made out to be a liar to 300 people. I'm not going to do it. We should, if anything, we should have not opened it up to anybody outside of Cape Carteret. That's the problem. It's always been the problem when they had a billboard down here at the yellow building. Anybody from the neighboring towns can join your boat ramp. You remember that, Miss? Down at Bubba's yellow building, they used to be a billboard there when Mayor Fowler was mayor, advertising our boat ramp. Swansboro, Cedar Point, anybody. That was the problem. We could take those passes. I don't know how many they are from out of town. Does anybody know? Heather? We should next year eliminate any outside of Cape Carteret passes. And that would eliminate that problem. But as it stands today, I can't vote to increase. Not after we told those people we need to maintain the revenue the boat ramp produces to keep from raising taxes, keep the revenue stream, but we're going to limit the capacity that we're bombarded for years with people parking everywhere down there, can't get your boat in, you name it. I've heard it for 6 years, but at some point in time, this board has got to say enough's enough. But we've made this ordinance. We're going to stick with it. 2 weeks ago, it was in the budget. The revenue was in the budget for the boat ramp. I vote for number 4, whatever that is. Stay where we're at.
There were a total of 66 passes of the 300 that were issued to non-Cape Carteret residents and property owners. So
there's the answer to the solution right there.
About 22%, 23%, something like that. So.
Well, now we were told last year that we had to keep it open to the public because of the grant funds that we accepted to dredge the channel.
That's correct.
So we can't do that. we can't just close it off to Cape Carteret residents. And we were told that last year.
Yeah, Mr. Steffi, I believe, looked into that, into the grant terms, and it had to be open to all the public because it was state money, not just.
That there was no state money built to build that facility. There was state money maybe for
to
dredging. Is that
dredging
correct?
it out, I believe is what it was.
That the facility, Paxton, has the facility ever received any grant money to build the facility? There you go. So I think there's, I don't think you're right there, Brett.
I think it was the dredging outside, and I wasn't here at the town at the time, but I understand they've done some dredging there at the boat ramp.
That's correct, but they didn't enhance the facility, nor did they pay to have it built. So I say we don't owe anybody outside Cape Carteret anything for that. They have no right to use it.
If we do not have to open it up to outside areas, then that's a whole different.
Yeah, we can
thing.
certainly revisit that issue. I mean, we could reach out to the grant agency again. I'm not sure who Zach reached out to, but certainly between now and December, we can give you a more solid answer on that.
Okay, when you
Absolutely.
back your trailer in, you're staying on that ramp, that concrete ramp that was built by, I don't know if the Holtz family or the town. Okay, you get out, you walk on that boardwalk. That's part of the facility. That dredging took place out in the channel, the connecting channel from the boat ramp to the.
Yeah, we're happy to look at it again. Happy to look at it again.
I'm just saying that's the whole problem here, guys.
I agree. 100%. I agree. If 66 permits go back to the town residents, I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, understand.
But that's just what we were told last June based off of those. However, if we can revisit this, and maybe that'll give you guys enough time to do a little research on it, I think that would be something that we need to do. But for the purposes of tonight, and for what I just said, we kind of created an unfair situation, and I'm just talking this year. I'm not talking for next year. I'm ready to make a motion on number 2. So, but I would like to revisit what Commissioner Martin brings up for, 66 that go to the town.
What was number 2 again?
Give me a.
So the option number 2
It's in your packet.
is to authorize the town manager to issue additional passes beyond the 300 cap to Cape Carteret residents and property owners with the following situations. 1, they're a new resident or property owner that moved to Cape Carteret or purchased their property in Cape Carteret after July 1st of 2022. The second is if they're a new boat owner with the boat purchased after July 1st, 2022. Again, Cape Carteret residents and property owners. And then third, if there's an individual with a bona fide disability with special needs, and that's going to require some judgment by the town manager. But that's the third item that would qualify for that, as it's written in the packet. Now, if the board wants to modify that in any way, you're certainly welcome to.
And Commissioner Watts, I would.
I think honestly it's going to be subjective. It's going to be the judgment of the town manager. The intent behind the provision is if there's someone maybe perhaps had a horrific accident in the past year or so, since July 1st of 2022, has a special need, maybe can't use the Emerald Isle ramp or the Cedar Point ramp and so forth, an opportunity for those people to secure a ramp for the Cape Carteret ramp. And again, it would be Cape Carteret residents and property owners only. I would think that would be the least likely to be utilized category under that option, but it really would just be a special case-by-case basis.
Commissioner Watts, for your motion, I'm not asking you to add something, but you did mention earlier about the price, and that motion does not address what the price would be. So if you want to add that to it for clarity.
I will do that in the motion.
Yes.
I'd just like to say this is, well, what I understand we're talking about tonight, it's just something till the end of the year. Am I correct? Something to finish up this year. Which gives the opportunity for the new property owners, as mentioned, an opportunity to use the boat ramp since we had extended the time limit to the end of the year. So coming up to around November, December, we need to have the discussion if they want to be anything else want to be added or deleted or changed. This is not talking about a cap, increasing a cap moving forward, just under the authority and the discretion of the town manager to be able to issue a permit to those that meet this resolution. So that's how I see it. This is not in stone. This is just a temporary fix moving forward until we get to next year. Not raising the cap, not deleting the cap, not changing out the people live outside of Cape Carteret, which can be addressed once we get more information pertaining to if we can or cannot determine upon the grants money that has been issued from the state of North Carolina to the town of Cape Carteret when it came to the dredging purposes.
Can I ask a question? How do you keep into account people who may have bought a pass last year? Okay, now again, you extended it for 18 months when they only purchased 12-month passes. You, in the middle of the game, changed it to 18 months, which put individuals such as myself at a tremendous disadvantage. But how do you know that somebody down there on Neptune or the Oakmont didn't sell their boat at the end of last season and no longer has it, nor do they no longer need a boat ramp pass? So how do you take into consideration the individuals that may have bought one and aren't going to use it or need to use it for that matter, which would create a deficit of less than 300?
Well, we don't, and that, to me, that's where if I bought that pass and I sell my boat and I don't use it, I may change my mind by the end of the year, so that's my prerogative to do that as that permit.
People buy and sell boats every day. I mean, so how do you know if they bought a pass if they didn't even move out of the area? So that's another individual that wouldn't need a boat ramp pass or isn't even using a boat ramp. So there's no way to tally that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying, but at the same point, here again, we're correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what your point is we're talking about just trying to resolve something till January and then
Yeah, I think
it's back to business as normal until we get information.
Yeah, I think there's to your question, is it a perfect situation? No, absolutely not, because the town it doesn't have the ability to track that. If you sold a boat, you wouldn't have to run that sale through the town for any reason, so they wouldn't know. So the answer to your question, you're exactly right. There is no perfect solution to this. What we have as a board is all we have is the ability to make slight adjustments to things as we see fit. Let's just say, for example, if someone moved into this town and didn't know that that's what the pass rules were, we're making accommodations for that. Or in this motion that I'm about to make, we'll make accommodations for that. If an individual had a medical situation that prevented them from doing something last year because, like you said, we changed the rules midstream and people didn't know. I am sympathetic to that. I understand that. And that's what we're sitting here talking about. And Mayor, if you're ready for a motion, I'd like to make one.
I got one more thing I need. I gave my word to 300 pass owners, and I'm not going to change. I'm not going to vote to add one more pass. It's not fair to the 300 that was sold this bill of goods. And I'm not going to change. It's a controversial issue. It's been one that's been hard to deal with, but we cannot keep on tweaking. I think it's not fair to those 300 that were paying $100. Now all of a sudden they're paying $250, and then the original problem was overcapacity, and we keep adding, and we're going to end up right back where we were.
I think to your point of the 300 people that you promised, I think that we serve Cape Carteret at large. And I think if we create an unfair situation, We have to be able to go back and say, you know what? Let's change course. Let's do this the right way. And I think that's what we're doing tonight.
I don't think so.
That's
think,
okay.
I think that's your take as it being unfair. I don't agree with you.
That's fine. That's completely fine. You're entitled to your opinion. However, I do know people that, for example, the people that bought a pass last year did not know they were not going to have to buy a pass in June. So rightfully so, the people that weren't able, for whatever reason, to buy a pass last year, they didn't know that they weren't going to be able to buy a pass this year. And so to say that that is not unfair, I disagree with you, but that's okay. We can just agree to disagree.
One of the things that would be the clear solution to all of this is don't have a cap and just sell only permits to the town residents of Cape Carteret. There's your answer.
Well,
That or give
But-
$125 back to the people that's bought them.
But that would be the only way you could do this to clear all this up. But without work with the state of Connecticut pertaining to the money they have given us for the dredging. So we don't know until we find out from when you do your homework on that. Again, I just look at this is just a temporary solution till the end of the year, till the boards can come back together and say, what are we going to do? But moving forward, I do feel like we get some more data pertaining to the boat ramp. Um, Police department won't like this, but it is what it is. Been there, done that. Is they could do a check throughout the day, see how many boats, people, how many vehicles are down there parked throughout the year, especially on holidays, especially during the busiest time of the year, which is the summer months and the fishing season. So if we get some more data, so how many vehicles are actually parking down there? Or are these 300 people actually using the boat ramp? Or they just get a boat ramp pass and say, hey, I have a boat ramp pass, and they don't ever use it. So they're sitting on a pass that could be given to somebody that would use it. So again, you don't have no way to tell because we don't have that ability at this point. So.
I'm like the mayor. You buy the pass, you can do what you want to with it. It's your pass, whether you use the ramp or not. But I say you put it to a motion. Whatever happens, happens, and whatever the public feels about the commissioners that vote that way, whatever.
What about a day or a week or a month?
Well, now,
I mean, and eliminate, the year pass entirely. They come, or right, a week ahead of time, they come to and get a pass for the month. People come here, to, the times that we choose to vote.
yeah, we have to be sympathetic to town staff. Having the public show up to get a pass here and there, I mean, it's already cumbersome the way we had them on sale at the 1st of June. I know I personally would ride through and buy my new pass on my way to the ramp. That was a reason for delaying it to the time of year when not very many people are needing a pass. Look, we can certainly cut this and slice this many different ways. I think that, again, this is not a perfect solution to the problem. We don't have the best of ways to do all of this for things that have already been stated. So I do think this is the best stopgap that gets us to the end of the year. In a way, this is a temporary pass. This is a 5-month, 6-month pass.
So last year, on July 1st, when people bought a pass, they paid that money with the intention that they were getting a 1-year pass. This board generously extended that to an 18-month pass. So essentially, those boat ramp passes were given it a free 6 months onto that pass. So my question is, for money, from an accountant standpoint of view, why would you not have turned around and said, okay, I mean, and I totally get why you want to do from December to December. That makes tremendous sense. But why did you not turn around and say, okay, starting on July 1st, we're going to give you a 6-month pass. We're going to prorate it And then starting in December, we're gonna start on a yearly rotation from December to December. You know, I don't understand why you gave up 6 months worth of revenue on boat ramp passes.
No, we didn't give it up, and we'll just end the conversation with that, because here again, it's just shifting the money pretty much. So we delayed 6 months is pretty much what we've done. And it was the best way to go, just like we're talking about. We're not wanting to hamper the staff, so now we're doing boat ramp passes twice in 1 year. So the board made a good decision, I think, in how it resolved all that at the time. Here again, you're not going to make everybody happy. It's just impossible to do that. And no matter what decision's made going forward, there's still going to be people that's not going to agree with it. I mean, that's just the way it is. But I think that this board's made some very good efforts to try to do that. And here again, we're just talking about something that, another issue that's come up, like you say, like you brought up. So we're trying to hammer those out, and will it ever be perfect? I doubt it. I doubt it. We'll always have something that shows up, but that's these gentlemen's job, is to deal with that as it does come.
So I would like to make a motion to have the staff implement option 2 in the town manager's memo with the following modifications. Data checks at the ramp, hourly, if we could do that. I'd like to drop the price down from $225 to $150. And I would like to drop the recommended cap, which would be the 25 additional passes. I would like to drop that to 10.
Got all written down. All right. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Can we change one thing on that?
Well, he's made the motion.
Okay.
Need a second, and then if you want to have a discussion about it.
Okay. I'll second that.
All right, now we can have a discussion.
I'm good with that motion. However, we're talking about the data checks. Let it be underneath the discretion of how the manager would like to have that done, instead of us giving him a direction from us, let him set the direction how he'd like to have it done.
Yeah, I mean, I think we certainly can send an officer there periodically during the day to count the number of vehicle trailer combinations there. I wouldn't want to say every hour
That's fine.
because they may have important calls going on. We probably won't meet that standard, but I think we could get a reasonable understanding of how busy it is. So multiple times per day.
Okay. Yeah. Can you delete that from my motion?
Yeah,
So
if you
I'll modify my motion. Do I have to say it all again?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
And then we need a second on the
Right,
modified
need a
motion.
second on the modified if you're going to.
Okay, I second the modification.
I just want to, for part of the discussion, I'm not going to vote for this, but I wanted to point out the fact that the town manager made the comment that 16 people had already called. Commissioner Watts is advocating for 10 more. I think it's 16 today, probably be 25 by the end of the summertime. So I'm just pulling that out there.
Yeah, just to clarify, that roughly that 15 to 20 number that I quoted was people just generally who might want another boat ramp pass. I don't know whether they had a new vessel or they just moved here or not. So it's probably some
just
number
throwing
less
that
than
out there,
just to be clear.
just in case this comes back
Sure.
2 more months, wanting 10 more passes.
The other thing I guess I want the board to be aware of, unless otherwise directed by the board, when we issue passes for 2024 in November and December of this year, we're operating with a cap of 285, unless the board directs otherwise, because that's the official policy. So, and we can certainly talk about it any other time you would like, but that's going to be our plan for this fall.
I think we need to talk about that, and I think it also needs to couple with the discussion of whether or not, the 66 need to go to the public or whatever it is.
Yeah, be happy to investigate that issue. That was before my time here, and I'm certainly happy to talk with the appropriate state officials and see what we can figure out.
Okay, that'd be good.
All right, so you modified his motion. Did you second?
Yep.
He
his
seconded.
motion?
We just got to vote.
Okay, any more discussion? Any all in favor? All opposed? All right, next up on the list is the town manager report.
Several things in the written report. I just want to highlight a couple of the more significant ones for you. One is you all had a conversation about the school resource officer position at your budget workshop meeting on May 22nd. Essentially, the concept was to have the Carteret County Sheriff provide a deputy in White Oak Elementary School, and then take the Cape Carteret officer that is currently working in White Oak Elementary School and put him back in the community of Cape Carteret to increase police coverage. If the town made that change, it would cost the town an additional $53,666. And so that's money that you would need to identify either through other budget reductions or revenue enhancements or fund balance, whatever the board's wish is. I would not recommend using fund balance for that expenditure more than 1 year. If that's something that you would like to pursue for the 23-24 school year, I think it would be best for the board to decide that no later than July 10th, your next meeting. So if you want to pursue that, let me know that. If not, I will assume that we are not pursuing that at this time. The town offers kayak storage racks at the end of Bayshore Drive and Holly Lane. Each rack accommodates 12 kayaks, and we sell out of those passes for the kayak storage racks. They're $25 each for the period of 1 year. We are contemplating adding additional racks if the board doesn't have any concerns about that. We thought about maybe adding one at the Manatee ramp, or maybe even adding a second one at Holly Lane. Just wanted to get the board's thoughts on that, if that's something you want to pursue. Relatively minor expense. It's about $500 of materials, a couple days of work by the public works staff. So let me know your thoughts on that as we get further along. Wanted to let you all know that I officially informed the North Carolina Local Government Fellows Program that we have rescinded our application for that position. So that has been resolved. On page 3 of the memo, I listed the 13 stormwater locations that the board had previously identified prior to my arrival that you wanted to identify solutions for. Gave you a status on each of those 13. Here within the next couple of months, we should have 6 of those resolved. So there'd be 7 more. My expectation is that the remaining 7 should be less complicated and less costly. And I'm optimistic that Ryan Hutchinson and I can identify good solutions for those areas going forward. Several other things in the packet. The last thing I would mention to you is I've got new monthly narrative reports and statistical reports included at the back of my update. It's not perfect at this point, but we will continue to improve that going forward and provide meaningful data for all of us, the board, the staff, the public, to track going forward. And so it's our first monthly report. Hope it's helpful. I think it'll be much more helpful as we add more data to it in the future. If you have any questions about anything else in the packet, I'm happy to answer them, or anything else pertaining to the town.
Any questions or comments for Frank? If not, then we'll move on to the commission reports, and we'll start with you, Steve.
Okay, to the lady that had a tire issue, I think it was you, we've allocated $5,000 in the budget that starts July for street sweeping on Highway 24. I feel your pain. I've paid for I don't know how many tires. What happens is the contractors come out of Lowe's and they sling their nails all over the road. And a lot of times the PD's out there sweeping them up. I've seen them do that, do the best they can to keep those, that debris out of the road there. They really do. And I hope that $5,000 that Frank asked us to advocate for that will make a difference. And those tires are expensive. I was happy to see finally, after I think 5 years, some the poor people on the Sutton place over there getting some help, and Arden Oaks, and hopefully BoC Sound Drive is next. And I want to thank Ryan, you and your crew for the excellent job you did on Mr. Moore's property. Fantastic. Don't even look like you've been there. I mean, it looks great. Full confidence in you and your crew to handle some of the other ones that Frank throws your way. I do have one concern I want to share. I was shocked to read that our police department is up in Maysville and Jones County doing saturation calls with Maysville Police Department. It bothers me. We're shorthanded and PD as it is. Not seeing the police department near as much in my neighborhood as we did in the past. I know it's not their fault. They're shorthanded. They do a great job. They go where they're told to go. I've been very vocal about mutual aid. I do understand mutual aid. Commissioner Waters educated me on some of that one time. But Jones County and Maysville, I've never seen a Maysville police officer here helping us saturate. But that said, I didn't like that at all. I'm all for discussing the SRO issue at the next meeting so we can find closure with it and let Sheriff Buck know where we stand once and for all on that issue. So if you want to put that on the agenda while all 5 commissioners are present, I think that'd be great to do and put it to rest once and for all. So that's all I got to say.
Jeff?
Nothing really to report. Just want to commend the staff, Public Works, Police Department, and the staff at Town Hall. Thank you for what you do. I know it's sometimes not always easy, but thank you. It's getting summer season for a lot of y'all, especially the outside work, but thank you for what you do. Frank, thank you for what you do as well.
Cameron?
Thank you, staff, as well. I know with this Parks Committee thing, we've needed a few things here and there, so I appreciate your support with me on that. To the public, we have a Parks Improvement Committee. Really would like for you to go to our website, capecarteretparks.com, check it out. There's a survey on there. We could really use your feedback. We will also be at the Sounds by the Sound event. I imagine the mayor's going to tell you about that. But we are going to be there with a little booth kiosk. Come talk to us. And we really could use some feedback. So we would appreciate that. That's all I have.
All right, well, I'll just continue what he's talking about with the Sounds of the Sound. It's a series of concerts we're having. This is the second one. Wednesday starts at 6:30. We've got I think it's the East Coast Jam Band is playing. Great musicians. One of them is actually Bob, who lives right over here on Nita Ford, professional trumpet player. So we have a nice horn section. We got Jay's, What's Jay Cooking food truck will be here for that. So if you like smash burgers, that'll be really good. And the great thing about that is that's all sponsored via our local businesses and paid for all that. So that's a great thing. And the Seaside Arts Council, which has helped put all that together. So can't say thank you enough to these local businesses and those that have supported that. Can't do it without them. And then coming up July 3rd, before our next meeting, to let you know, we're going to have the big fireworks event going on over at McAddy's. And that's where all the towns and different businesses have come together. And we're going to put that together. It's going to be live music, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of great things happening. It should be the largest fireworks display, I think, on the East Coast, right here in our little town. And that's July 3rd over McAddy's. Hope you all can attend that. It should be a great display. Let's hope we have some weather that will provide that to happen. I can't remember if we had a rain day, I think, for Labor Day or something, maybe to come up, but I'm just going to be hopeful that it all works out well. And I also echo the compliments for all the staff, police, public works, office staff. You know, the people use the term public servant. And I think a lot of us take advantage of that when we use that word servant. And I worked for towns for 30 years, so I've seen it from both ends, and I know how frustrating it is when you have to deal with the public and you deal with elected officials on a daily basis. And that's a lot. And I thank you all for doing that. And it's a tough job, and I can't say how much I appreciate it for this little bitty town. Like the man was saying, we got 3 guys in public works that do everything. You know, and for our town, you know, for what we do and what we're paying, we're getting a great bang for our buck. I don't think people realize, you know, all the problems we sit here, and most of our time tonight was spent about boat passes. How lucky are we that we live in such a great town that that's our big concern tonight, that storm drain and some street issues. We are very blessed to be here. And I'm very blessed to be here and be the mayor of this town. I can't say enough about it. And the great staff and the board here, we may not agree, as you've seen tonight, but each one of them has given their opinion and has rightfully, you know, backed their opinion up. And they're here to look out for what they think is the best for the town. If you don't agree, I suggest in July 1st, I think you can sign up to run for this board. And I encourage everybody to do that. And then you can get here. It's a lot different sitting out there than it is sitting up here. And because you're open for all kinds of stuff, and especially our staff, because here again, they're open as well. But I do hope you all treat them with the respect that they deserve. And with that, I thank you all for being here tonight. This is your town. We're not going to do everything that's going to make everybody happy, as I said earlier, but we're going to try our best to do what we can, because we're all neighbors at the end of the day. And just like with family, you can't get along with your family a lot of times. You're not going to get along with your neighbors, but we can try. And that's the best we can do. And with that, I will shut up and entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. And I hope y'all have a wonderful Independence Day.
My phone died. Yeah.
Oh, Flag Day for the